This is a little bit overgeneralized, but I don't think too much. There are four basic reasons for making a scroll instead of a codex in the Middle Ages. One of them is when you don't know how long it's going to be. I have a favorite cartoon of Santa Claus holding a list of things. You know, you can imagine that as each child sends in a list, Santa Claus's scroll gets longer. And there are mortuary rolls where if the abbot of our monastery dies, we make a document that announces his death and invites our fellow monasteries to pray for the repose of his soul. We roll it up and we send one of our monks around to travel around to all our sister monasteries, and they all add their prayer at the bottom of the roll, so the roll gets longer as it travels. And that's the reason for having it in roll form, because you might fill up a little booklet if somebody carried it around. These mortuary rolls are wonderful because they're dated. Each entry is dated. You know how long it took the guy to get from this monastery to that monastery, and you can make maps of exactly where this roll traveled. So that's one reason for making scrolls. Scrolls that are indeterminate with respect to their length. Another one is portability. There are reasons when you have a short or a small text. What is it an actor does when he's in a play or she's in a play? She plays her role. Well, that word role is the French word R-O-L-E. You wonder why it has that little circumflex accent on it, because it comes from the word for a role. Because not many of these survive, of course, because they're meant to be throwaway things, and once you get on stage you might not need it. But the idea is that you could hide in your hand something that you would recite from, a little cheat sheet. And we have roles of poetry, roles of actors' roles, and other kinds of things designed to be small. There are other portable roles too. Music that ecclesiastical music that you sing when you go out and bless the crops. You go out through the fields. You don't want to take the whole huge giant chant book. You just take the music that you're going to need today and you go out there. So we have rolled up processional things from churches. There are also portable things, amulets. Sometimes you have a tiny little scroll and you wear it around your neck in a little box. Women used to do that in the 14th and 15th century. You have the life of St. Margaret written out and you roll it up, and it protects you during your pregnancy. And it's actually stretched out on your body while you're giving birth. It brings your pregnancy to full term and guarantees a safe delivery. Did you know the life of St. Margaret could do that? Well, it can, at least in 15th century England. So that's another kind of thing. There are also scrolls that are exactly the things called Arma Christi rolls that are about the instruments of Christ's passion, and the scroll is exactly the length of Christ's body. How they knew how tall Christ was, I don't know. But there are these scrolls, and you carry it around with you, so it has a kind of apotropaic or kind of charm quality. But the portability is an important aspect. Another reason for making something in a scroll format is when the subject matter suggests it. There are genealogies, for example, from Adam down to now. There are genealogies of the kings of England or of the kings of France, and you can imagine that just following down in a roll gives you a wonderful way of tracing generations through time. And there are chronicle rolls that tell the history of the world. There's a famous series of texts in French called the Chronique Anonyme Universelle that tells about France and England and biblical history and the history of the popes in parallel columns going through time. And there's a famous compendium of a guy named Peter of Poitiers that also tells Christian salvation history down through time. Other kinds of format that suggest scroll form are: how do I get to the Holy Land from here? There are maps, pilgrim's guides of various kinds. How do you get to Rome? I remember I don't know if they still do it, but the American Automobile Association used to give you a thing called a triptych. If I wanted to drive from here to Baltimore, I would go to the AAA office, and they would give me this long strip of map that had Boston here and Baltimore here, and it would just show you the part of the roads that you needed to know about. And of course it would be a long thing. Sometimes they folded it up, sometimes they rolled it up. But that's the kind of format thing that suggests the utility of roll form. And there's something archaic about a scroll in the age of the codex, and yet you want to do it because it lends a certain solemnity to things, in the same way that Symphony orchestras wear white tie and tails, which is 19th century streetwear, or that priests wear fancy clothes in churches that are really medieval streetwear. It's a way of lending importance by the age of the thing, a kind of giving solemnity and importance to it. The same way that the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz gets a diploma. We get diplomas from our college, and they aren't usually rolled up anymore, but we expect a diploma to be rolled up with a ribbon around it. Or the coroner in The Wizard of Oz, to show that the witch is dead, has to have a scroll that he unrolls. So I think that some medieval scrolls are made in the form of a scroll because of their importance. Not to speak of the Torah, of course, which is always a scroll, but there are other things. My exalted rolls, those beautiful things with music and pictures, the pictures painted upside down so that as I sing from the top of the pulpit and unroll the scroll, you, the viewer, listener, will see the pictures, a kind of medieval MTV. But there are other things too. Council reports, that is, things that seem to be very, very important, are sometimes written on scrolls. Certain ecclesiastical things are written on scrolls. There are a couple of royal marriage contracts that are written in the form of a scroll. And those, I think, are done in order to show how important this is.